Hey guys, what's up? It's Coach Carroll. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Factory. I got PeriSean B. Hall with me today. I'm super excited. She is a culture strategist, a keynote speaker, and author of The Culture Code, a framework for healing organizational culture. PeriSean has spent over 20 years helping leaders, educators, and mission-driven organizations rediscover clarity, care, and courage in their workplace culture. Her framework tackles the real issues behind burnout, alignment, and purpose, helping companies reconnect their internal culture with their outward mission. She's known for her gift of naming what others avoid with honesty, empathy, and precision. PeriSean, welcome to the Sales Factory.
Thank you, DJ. It's so good to be here.
Yeah,
Thanks for
absolutely.
having me.
I'm excited. Admittedly, for a really long time, I thought company culture was this like fluffy bullshit that just cost me money and we didn't need it. Right? I gave people a paycheck; they just needed to do their job, and
Right.
unfortunately, I rocked with that mentality for far too long. Fortunately, I had a really great mentor that I went to one of his boot camps and just completely came back and revitalized the company
Wow.
culture. Now we've got core values, growth, innovation, velocity, and excellence. They spell out give. We live out our company culture every quarter by doing a give project in the community with Family Scholar House. And yeah, something that is super, super like impactful to me now. And like, I wouldn't want to do business without it. I even this Friday, you're going to love this. I have the Family Fun Fall Festival out here at my farm in Kentucky
Oh,
that all of
nice.
my family and my team members, I call it my internal and external family, they all come out and we get together and have like a big chili cook off and pitch in. And so I'm excited to jam with you for the next 30 to 45 minutes about company culture. How did
Yes.
you get here? I mean, 20 years into this game, like take us all the way back to the beginning. What made you want to start talking about company culture?
Well, I have to go way back to my mama.
Okay.
And so what company culture eventually it's all about etiquette,
Mm.
professional etiquette, social etiquette. And my mother was always teaching me these tips on etiquette. For instance, if there was a time when she was getting a carpool to work, and she told me to always be ready when the person arrived. Don't have people waiting on you and they're picking you up. So you need to be ready when they go. And just these lessons throughout my lifetime with her. I ended up writing a book my mother told me, Motherly Wisdom for Everyday Living. So it began at
Love
home.
that.
And she was always interested in I have two brothers, and he always interested in how we treated one another and how we treated other people. And so that has been passed on to me. And I've been in the midst of workplaces over the various years, and I've observed behavior. I have been in supervisory roles from time to time, but most of all, an observer by default. So I was always the one to, if there was an issue, a pervasive issue, say that people weren't being treated fairly. I am always the mouthpiece to go to leadership. And sometimes it's been, the people who are leading you, who are
Mm.
ahead of you or above you on the org chart that are doing the mistreating. And so with the culture education, the culture changing from toxic culture to a healthy culture, I always like to begin with leaders because we know everything rises and falls from the head down. So
Yeah.
it starts with the head. And so I've had the conversations that literally have shifted culture. I mean, I'm not afraid, of course, I don't send myself. I believe I'm a sent one. God sent me and sends me into different environments to make sure that people are being treated, including myself. I'm sure we've all experienced some level of toxicity in the workplace, and we've been mistreated, or just dynamics that go on in the workplace.
Yeah.
I'm real passionate about it. I'm real passionate about it because I know I'm all about teamwork. And so we know teamwork makes the dream work, which is true.
Right.
And so we have to handle these behavior things. The code of conduct is really what it's about. It's behavior shapes culture. And we know culture is not a picnic. It's not know, doing all this fun stuff. I mean, that's a part of it, but the gist of it is, the people. How are the people feeling? Because people are suffering from burnout. People are quietly quitting on their jobs, as you know, and people are not being a part of the team. I've witnessed there's some renegades out there. And that leadership, if things go unaddressed, it becomes more of a problem, and it's leadership's responsibility to address that. And so I'm finding in various work environments, this is where I come in as coach, come in, coach a team. And I'm like, okay, let me observe what's going on. Let me talk to the leaders about their pain points, and let's develop a formula through the culture code uh, to help you just
I
improve
love that.
culture, because this got to change.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think it's toxic anytime I sit down to a sales deal and they don't say yes to me, right? But
Yeah, I can see your point there.
no, I totally get what you're saying, and I can only imagine. I've been unemployable since I was 18, so fortunately, unfortunately, I've never really worked at a big corporation. I think the biggest company I ever worked for was like Hometown Pizza, who had 6 locations and probably a few dozen
I love it.
employees. But for me, I can see where definitely in the corporate world that's a big problem. The quiet
Oh,
quitting
yeah.
people. I've got a video. It just popped up the other day. My team reshared it where it was like 2018,
Mhm.
and I kind of did a shot across the bow, and I said, I was in my high-rise office at the time, and I was looking out and I could see a big PNC tower, and I said,
Mhm.
in the 2020s, I was like, we're about to go through the roaring 20s again, and in the 2020s entrepreneurship's going to take hold because
Yeah.
technology has lowered the barrier to entry,
Oh,
to
my.
where if you are just a number in a corporation sitting in a cubicle doing mindless, numbing work, it's going to be easy for you to want to quit because there is an easy alternative where you can go from making 70K a year to maybe making 45 or 50K a year, but having
Mhm.
your freedom and your mental health back. And I kind of seen what
Whoa.
was going to happen. And, unfortunately, I guess not unfortunately for the new fledged entrepreneurs that are out there, but unfortunately for the big corporations, they kind of have just had this, it is what it is. I think COVID shook that up, and I would love your
Mhm.
take, what you saw during COVID, because I think we're still fighting that where
Wow.
people are like, I kind of like being at home. Like, let me just get my job
Right.
done and you leave me alone. I don't want to have to come back and give you Monday through Friday, 40 hours a week in an office when I'm really only doing 20 hours worth of work. What have you
Right.
seen in that shift in the last 5 years?
Well, it's certainly impacted me and our teams that I've worked with. And this is, I like to address the corporate nonprofit environments, I've been in workforce development for years. So helping people get back to work and training dislocated workers and assisting them. But, working from home, I did it for 3 years and I'm literally over it. We talk about silos. There's this side of feeling isolated at a particular time, and it's like, okay, we have to communicate with people, and it's intergenerational how people do that. I think that with the younger generations, I would consider myself Generation X.
Okay.
And so we operate a little different, and we are interactive. We being social is very important. I think initially when they sent everybody home because of COVID, I was very excited because working from home, of course, as you mentioned, versus working in the office, they're two different environments, and you really have to have a strong sense of accountability if you're working home alone, being isolated there, and motivation. But over a period of time, I've noticed the demotivation of wanting to do the work, and just people not being accountable, not showing up on time. It's just a lax. And then we didn't dress to the nines when we, somebody, I will say that I am fully dressed today, even though this interview is virtual.
I love it.
And so, but I
Dressed very well, I might add, for the people that are listening on the audio platforms. You got a really, really nice black shirt with a white blazer over the top and a pop and blue background. That's almost the Dan Martell "Buy Back Your Time" blue behind you. I love that. So,
well, thank
um,
you.
yeah, I
But
can
yeah.
I can see
Mhm.
where you're coming from. It was one of those like, okay, cool. This is like a vacation a little bit, and then I think it really where I saw. I'm a millennial. I saw with my generation and Gen Zers, I think it really was tough for single people. So if
Okay.
you were at home
Yeah.
with no spouse, no kids, it was like, okay, I'm home by myself all day working, and then I'm home by myself all night doing whatever I'm doing in the evenings. And like that's cool because I really think it was a mental health reset, right?
Yeah.
But you know, after so much time though, it's kind of like, you know, not working out for a while can help your muscles, you know, rejuvenate, but then you also get apathy if you don't use your muscles at all. And so
Hello.
I think
Yeah.
you seeing people, you know, walking around in their pajama pants at 3 in the afternoon. You're like, hey, dude, what are you doing? You know?
Right, right. It's like, really? Okay. But yeah, I totally agree with that mental health aspect. I think it impacts all generations. You know, if I'm naturally, which I am a natural extrovert, you know, I wasn't being able to, I was so happy on the Zoom calls, on the team calls, you know, because I could see people.
Yeah, I get
And
that.
but yeah, that's a deep part of culture because you know if we have toxic work environments, it does impact mental health. And so, you know, I think what I bring is different. I'm actually getting to the core. I'm actually not just diagnosing, but working towards a healing, a resolution to where people can start to feel better about being at work, communicating with one another, having a more fluid team environment, which all of this impacts the bottom line of business.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. How do you see burnout? And like, and how does it I've got in my notes here a question I had for you that I wanted to ask is like, how do you see burnout and like with mission and then how that drifts with leadership teams? You know, where do you see burnout playing into company culture? Where are like maybe some things that the leadership should be looking out for, and like if
mhm.
they're seeing burnout, how do you fix that?
Okay. Well, in terms of leadership, spotting that or that's happening in companies, you know, you just have to observe people. They don't tend to be as motivated to do a thing. They're losing interest. They may be just quietly quitting, just, you know, staying to themselves, not being as bubbly. You observe their behavior when they first came in, but if you see things declining, you begin to wonder, well, what's going on? And that's when those conversations have to happen. What's going on with you? You may be on a team where somebody's gaslighting you. I think it impacts mental health and the burnout. It's like, oh no, I got to go here, and people being overworked too. I mean, you know, they're not getting much pay these days, and then the work is being piled on. And so they're trying to find a work-life balance between, you know, what they do every day at work and the issues that they have at home. I always say that people have a culture in the office, but they also bring in a culture from home. So people are dealing with personal issues, personal problems that many cases people haven't dealt with. And so they get to a point where it's just overloaded. They're overloaded at home, they're overloaded at work, or they don't want to go because it's toxic. You know, you don't have support from leadership. That's one of the things I've seen. And then if leadership is playing favoritism, the favorites are obvious. I mean, that all of that has an impact on the culture, and it can really play a part in people just getting burnt out. If it's the same old, there's no new ideas, no new incentives. There's not care about people. I mean, we're just doing the work.
Mhm.
And people want to be able to relate and build relationships and maintain these relationships because business is all about a relationship. And if they feel like they're just in this, you know, they feel stuck. It can really, those are signs to really watch for. And I think it's important for leaders to be on the lookout. I was in a workplace today and I saw an employer or an employee come in and her countenance was sad. You know, it's something as simple as I asked her, I said, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" You know, just how much that means to people. Whereas some people come in, if leadership or people working with them are not noticing them, we're just a bunch of numbers moving around. I think that's problematic because they can't function on their jobs effectively if something's going wrong. And if nobody seems to care, I mean, that impacts them too. So,
Yeah. I totally get that. Talk to me about gaslighting. What did you mean by that?
well, it's kind of like you feel like you're blowing up. You know, somebody's playing tricks on your mind. I'm trying to give you I felt it today. It's
Okay.
like So there's gossip about you, and you can tell that people are whispering, whispering, and then you get in the situation where they want to say things out loud. You know, it requires an audience, say negative things about you, or try to. Here, let me just give you a practical advice. So, or an
Okay.
example. So I had written something down on a pad for a customer the other day, and so they had to get on the computer, and so this other coworker comes back and she's, out loud. Yeah, I call these people kind of cowards because they don't come to you one-on-one. They want an audience. And so she announces, well, he can't read this, and this looks like a two. And then she engaged in the conversation with the customer. Yeah, it's like I don't know why she wrote this. And she's trying to have this big conversation. That's about negativity. And I'm standing there, feeling gaslit, like I'm on fire based on her comment, and that it's not meant for good. She's just trying to stir up confusion. And so I literally felt like I was on fire, as
Yeah,
she.
because I've heard that term a lot, like in just the last couple of years. I felt like I'd never heard it before, and then like in the
Yeah,
last couple of years, gaslight or gaslighting has like become a term that I hear often, and I
yeah,
never really understood what it meant. So
yeah. They're blowing you up in front of people. It's like not just throwing you on the bus, but they are just saying all negative things out loud to work and getting other people involved. And
wow,
that's an example. And I was
and it's
like,
just like and like it's completely off base and uncalled for.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And so what I had to do in that situation is, okay, my thing is let's go to the solution. Let's not exacerbate the problem. Let's not magnify the problem. So I'm
yeah.
like, okay, well, how can I fix this? I went in and I said, okay, well, here's this, here's what I meant. And that had to be the end of it. So it took the wind out of their sails, but it's just evil intent to try to make somebody look bad in a
Huh.
public way.
Yeah, I got no room for negativity, so like I just
Exactly.
that stuff can't that stuff can't exist
Exactly.
around me.
Exactly. I'm the same with you.
Talk to me about personal excellence and how that plays into company culture, because I think sometimes, this is a mistake that I probably made in the early days was when I had no company culture. And then I was like, okay, cool, let's have company culture. And it was like, I just want everybody to be warm and fuzzy and like, let's all have fun and it's all good in games. And then it was like, what I quickly realized, PeriSean, is that I had built culture, but it wasn't performance culture, meaning
Okay.
that we weren't moving the needle. And that was very difficult to readjust because in business, I guess if you're in a nonprofit it's a little different maybe, but like for like in business, like you're there to make money, to do a thing, right, to
Right.
build,
Right.
to create. And so like I think personal excellence is a big piece of that, like taking personal responsibility. How do you
Mhm.
see that playing into company culture? Because that's certainly something that I've had to readjust and fix in the process.
Right. I think that personal excellence is something that you've built in your own mind, not that it's wrong or right, but it still has to align with the company's uh, their code of ethics and their expectations. So I think follow through is a great way of being. My mother used to always get on me. See, it always started with my mama told me. But she's like, you have to follow through on what you say you're going to do. Keep your word no matter what. And if something needs to change, you need to communicate that. So, but I want to distinguish personal excellence with perfection.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
we're
because
not
perfection
perfect.
never arrives.
Right. We're not perfect. So we have to be careful. We're performing at our highest and our best. We're giving it the attention that it needs, the work assignment. We're considering our teams. We're able to work fluidly with other people. It's like those good citizenship grades we used to get in grade school. Do they work well with others? And and so I think personal excellence is not just an internal thing. I think it's how you relate to one another, how that translates into your culture and how it fits with your culture. And it has to be in line with what's expected because a lot of times out of personal excellence, we're going by what we were taught, what we know. And sometimes that may not be in direct alignment in every aspect. with the company culture. So we have to be willing, like you mentioned, to make adjustments and draw back, get feedback. I'm a big person, big proponent of getting feedback from leaders, and even speaking with the people that you're working with. How is it going? How are the services that I'm providing? Am I giving you what you need? Are there any areas that you'd like me to improve? So I think part of personal excellence is to be willing to be critiqued in a healthy way so that you can become better. So excellence is still a continuous process. That's a process. But if we're open, we have, we're willing to bring our best, dress our best, look our best, be prepared. Those are great things to bring into the culture, and and don't do a whole lot of talking about what you do. Just let it show up in what you do.
That's right. I always say, show me, don't tell me.
That's it. That's it. And people will attribute that to you. I think it translates into a level of professionalism. They're like, this person is very professional. And I
Yeah.
think that it segues into personal excellence as well.
I
So,
love that. I love that. In my new book that just came out, The Hunter Head Game, I talk
yeah.
about you have to dress the part of the hunter, meaning that oftentimes I was lucky enough that in my early 20s, like 21, 22 years old, I had my very first sales coach, and one of my first mentors. He
Mhm.
taught me like show up, dress to impress, and
Yeah.
at the time, I'm running my lawn care and landscaping business, and I'm going and walking in to meet with property managers, and I'm wearing a suit and a collared shirt, and I remember walking in, and it was completely different than if I came in a Easy Pro t-shirt with blue jeans and work
Oh, yeah.
boots on. It was this, and it was like this, like, oh, who's this guy? And Chuck, my sales coach, he used to always tell me, he said, you want to walk through the door and them not know if you're there to sell them something, or if you're there because they're in trouble, right? And like
Wow.
if you can carry that presence about yourself in the room and allow your presence to speak before you ever open your mouth, you've
Yeah.
already got one of the points going in your direction. So,
There you
uh,
go. Yeah, that's an authoritative presence. Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Like
Uh,
I've come into environments, and I'm sure you have, you show up dressed like that to the nines, and people think you run the place.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
like,
And it's like if I got to pick one or the other, I'd rather them think I run the place than I'm the janitor, right? If I
right,
if I've got to
right,
have one of the two
right.
options going for me, I'd rather it be the
Yeah.
first. So,
Can
but
I add this in? So I think when we're dressed to the nines, it also impacts people, our customers. When
ooh,
they see that, I mean, I literally, how you present people, how you greet people, how you're dressed, they look at you. And I always like to get a smile out of people.
yeah.
I smile at them, I greet them with respect, high regard, and they're put at ease,
Mhm.
with that smile and the presence that's a big part of culture too. What kind of environment are we creating? What are we growing in here?
Mm, I
So
like that. I like that. What is maybe the craziest culture story, like bad culture story, you can share with the audience? Maybe we get a social media clip here. Like, what's a shock and awe moment where PeriSean walked in and was like, I don't even know if I want to be in this room right now.
now that's a good question. Give me a couple of moments on that one. Um, I'm thinking, well, I mean, it's happening now. I'm
Oh,
working, you know, I'm like, so this lady I call her a renegade. She just comes in and she leaves and nobody knows where she is. She leaves the campus, and the leaders they're just saying she's gone. But I'm like, well, where's the accountability? Who's going to say something to this lady, because she's just going to get worse. And she's
or
already
or
bad.
or even worse, she's going to start enacting some other people that start acting that way, right?
Yes, she already has a couple of people who are, behaving as she is in different ways, but she's, keeping that negative environment going. And these people. I've only been at this particular office for over a week now, but
Okay.
since I have been there, it's always backbiting between these ladies. It is gossip. I mean, it is. as I mentioned, the gaslighting with me there, you know.
Wow.
And then they're trying to play tricks on the newbie since I've been newly assigned to that office. And but they don't know. You know, I have a quiet calmness that communicates a lot in a great way. It's like I'm no pushover,
So
you know.
why does the leadership team tolerate that? Why isn't she fired or written up or put on a PIP plan?
That has been I'm like, I've only been there a week and a half, and I'm like, what is, and they're standing around complaining about the girl's gone. She didn't report to anyone, and then she gets back and nobody says anything. I don't understand that. But then I have to remind myself because I really wanted to say something to her, you know. But I'm
Why
like,
didn't
okay,
you?
it probably would have caused a scene. But the main reason was I would be out of line because leadership should address her. And
Uh.
I'm not trying to fight every battle, but I am watching to see what's going on and how this is going to pan out. I really am, or how it's not going to pan out because
Yeah.
it's out of control. It makes me make my eyes big, you know.
Makes my eyes big. That's funny.
It's like, is this really happening? Is she doing whatever the heck she wants to do and can come
Wow.
back and still have a job? And this is not an isolated event. She has different ways. I'm like, well, that's why I call her a renegade.
Let me ask you, is she like a top performing salesperson? Because I've seen that
No.
a lot. No? Okay. Because I have seen that where like if you're a top
Oh,
producer that like they're like, well,
yes.
yeah, I mean he's kind of an asshole and kind of nobody likes him, but
Mhm.
he sells more than anybody else, so we'll tolerate him.
See,
And
I
it's
I
like it's
mentioned that in
terrible.
my book. The guy, he was a top sales guy, you
Yeah.
know, and they let him talk to people any way he wanted to. I mean, they just let him, whatever he did, it was okay with them because he was bringing in the money. And I one of the characters I wrote about in my book, or one of the scenarios. So I didn't name any names, but I've seen many scenarios. It's like,
Yeah, oftentimes it's funny. The podcast I just did right before this with Brooke Brolo, she talked about having to fire her top performing sales guy just because he just wasn't a good culture fit. And I always say it's like one of the toughest lessons you ever have to learn. But like once it happens, like you like okay, lesson learned. I'll never do that again. But I also believe that I've worked with enough entrepreneurs and coached enough of them, and just have lived the life that when you fire that person, you're always like, damn, why didn't I do that 90 days sooner? Right. It's always like
oh
this,
yeah,
like
yeah.
you know that it's the right decision as soon as you make it. You wish you would have done it sooner.
Right.
And I'll tell you, for me at least, recently, earlier this year, I had a younger kid that was working with us. Great kid. I mean, just fantastic. I like, I would put him in the top 10. I've probably had 400 people that have worked for me over the years. He's probably in the top 10 just from just a nice person to be around. You know what I mean? Just well
Gotcha.
mannered. His parents raised him right. He was just good. The shit you can't teach, right? Like it's either innate or not.
Yeah, yeah.
But we do what's called, and I would love to get your take on this, Pearson. It's like we do a thing. I fly airplanes. We call it heading adjustments.
Oh,
So if you fly an airplane 1 degree off course for an hour, it puts you 5 miles off your destination. And so what I typically find is that when you only do a performance evaluation once a year, okay,
wow.
1 degree off course for an hour, 2 hours. By the time you get to 12 hours, you're in a different state. And then,
Right.
bosses will have a meeting with someone and they'll come out just flabbergasted, like, I had no idea any of this was going on. And so we do what's called heading adjustments. So every month we meet and we say, hey, what's your heading look like? Are you on track or off track? What's your growth look like? What's your innovation look like? What's your
Yeah.
velocity look like? What's your excellence look like? And so we coach and we manage through the core values. And this kid started popping off with, I don't know, man. I don't know that I want to be in sales, DJ. I think I might want to be a police officer. So after about 3 months of this happening, and we also do a job satisfaction score every month, and I've
Okay.
seen it tracking down, he got to a 7.2, and I had a meeting with him, and I said, look, man, I'm going to make a really tough decision today. You
Hmm.
are a great person. I don't want to lose you, but you're 24 years old. I want you to go be a police officer. And he looked at me. He's like, huh? I said, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I'm not firing you. I'm encouraging you to go taste life. And if you get in
Yeah.
a shootout 18 months from now and you're like, oh, I severely misunderestimated this, your sales seat will be here for you. But I want you to go do that. And I'll tell you, that was one of the hardest things because I lost a really good
Hmm.
person. But I
Yeah.
know for our company culture, that was the right thing to do because it sent that kid down a pathway that, that would have only continued to fall off, right? It would have only
Yeah.
gotten worse month after month after month until then it would have been a blow up versus we left on great terms. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh, well done.
yeah, I
Well
appreciate
done.
that. I
I love
appreciate
it.
that.
I'm
I'm curious, what do you think about that heading adjustment method though that I've come up with?
Yeah, I think waiting for a whole year, and sometimes people get surprises that in that year. They're in the meeting with the leader and who they've never said anything, and all of a sudden, where's this coming from?
All right.
But I think that is a strong foundation for accountability.
I like
And
that.
accountability is not just to tell on people, but we all need to report to one another. We all need to be accountable to someone in order to improve. Iron sharpens iron is what I've heard. And so as long as we're trying to do things independently or it just like you mentioned, it would breed too much bad behavior if people are just kept on for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Some
Right.
people are there just because they need a job. I mean, no
Right.
matter the age, and it's like, okay, I want people to grow. That's a part of a healthy culture. People are growing,
Yep.
they're learning, they're you think about a plant. I always think about agriculture when I think about the culture because you have the ground that they're in, the environment that's set, and then you're planting seeds that will grow. And if you're planting the wrong thing, if you're planting eat gossip, backbite, all the negative stuff, that's going to define your culture.
Yeah.
And it spills over onto your customers. It spills over. I mean, it just reeks a bad scent. It's a bad smell. I mean, you can go
Yeah.
in a negative culture it smells bad. It
Yeah.
looks bad. It's just you don't want to be there.
Yeah. Life's
But
too short to not have fun at work, is what I say.
yeah, I love it. I love it. But we have to, in order to progress, I had a company leader say, "Hey, if this is not it, help us to get with you so that we can help you get where you need to be because you're not benefiting yourself or the company if you're just staying stagnant. You're just here and you're not growing. You're not helping us. So let us help you get to where you're going, which is exactly what you did with that young man,
Yeah.
which I'm like, that's awesome. Y'all got a
Thank you.
great culture.
I've certainly grown as a leader over the years. I've got just as many, or probably 10 times as many bad stories of things that
Oh yeah.
go
Oh
as
yeah.
well. Especially man, back in the green industry days and the lawn care days where, when you talk about people just need a job, that was probably one of the hardest lessons to learn in that business was that
Mm,
I'm in my, early 20s, mid 20s, and I'm a go-getter. I'm reading Think and Grow Rich and John C. Maxwell books and
yeah.
everything I can get my hands on to be a better person. And
Right.
then, I see these guys that come in smelling like beer because they're just there to get a paycheck. And one of my mentors, Frank Bessignac, he's a management consultant, and he said, DJ, there's minders, finders, and grinders. And some people, man, they're just grinders. They're just here to get a job, and that's all they'll ever be. And that's not
Mhm.
your problem to fix,
Right.
nor is it your problem to worry about. Like that's
True.
who they are, right? And so
Right.
that was one of the tough lessons, especially like I'm like just a natural coach, right? So I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
let me help you. I see so much in you. You got so much potential. And they're like,
Right.
I'm good, right? And so that's where it goes back
Right.
to that. I think in traction they talk about that where they say, they
Oh,
have
I
to
love
want
that.
it, get it, and have the capacity to do it. And
Absolutely.
sometimes that's the toughest thing as a leader in a company is looking at somebody and saying, man, they don't even see the potential that I see in them. That
Mhm.
can be very, very difficult.
And that's really encouraging to hear about your culture. And hopefully with our goal, we'll have more healthy cultures that are doing that. But those who are stagnant, leaders who are afraid to have those conversations, they just can't be afraid because
Yeah,
they're accountable now.
yeah,
Uh, if you're looking at a coworker and they've been behaving such a way, I mean, it's going to impact everybody. Everybody's going to lay off. If you have a toxic boss that talks wrong to people, the words that you use, I talk about that in the book. It just impact the atmosphere and it'll dictate how things look. and feel and smell, because all of this is about creating an experience where everybody can thrive. That's really what culture is all about. And I always like to talk, it's at the seat of customer service, and I'm real passionate. So this has grown into helping to heal culture from the inside out, because we got, a lot of people want to just, we can't afford to just keep sweeping things under the rug. We've got to lift up that rug and say, hey, what's under here? Let's get after it. Let's see what's going on.
We'll find those dust bunnies and get them in the trash. That's why,
Yeah.
growth is our first core value. And I always say, people are happiest when they're growing. And I had somebody tell me one time at a conference, they kind of shouted out, they're like, well, not everybody, they kind of like were challenging me from stage. And I always love it because the hecklers always think like, I got him.
I know.
I said, who said that? And I look out and this guy raised his hand. And I pointed at him and I said, yeah, well, then they don't work for me. And that's the company culture, right? Because I do think people are happiest when they're growing. And if you aren't a happy person when you're growing, you don't have a job here. Like, it's as simple as that, right? I think we always hear about ICP, ideal customer profile, but I also think you have to have the ideal employee profile, the IEP.
Oh,
right?
please.
Like,
Yeah.
you have to know who you want on your team.
Absolutely.
The other thing is like, this has been and again, guys that are listening on the podcast right now, I always tell you all, like, I am not an expert at anything. I'm a student and a practitioner. And so everything that I share with you all is always life lessons. And if I'm like, hey, you should probably do it this way, it's probably because I've tried 12 other wrong ways of doing it and finally found that path.
Yes.
So the challenge that is, as you're growing your business and you're continuing to level up, people will naturally fall off. And it's not because they're bad. It's not because, they did anything wrong. It just could be that the people that got you from the 100K a year to a $500,000 a year do not have the same appetite for growth to go from a $500,000 to 1 or 1 to 5 or 5 to 10. And that's okay. It's kind of like, I would hope you don't have the same underwear and socks that you had in high school, right? Like, hopefully as you grew, you leveled that up too. So
hopefully so. Yes, I see your point exactly. I mean, we've got to continue to grow and allow others to grow. We've got to have the right soil in place. Is it a place where people can grow? And so when people don't feel like, people who want to grow and they don't feel like there are growth opportunities, then they feel stunted. That's when everything starts settling in as burnout and unhappiness. But I want to add, though, with growth, there is pain.
Yeah.
There is pain. But knowing that, as you're exercising new muscles and going higher, if you can keep the reward fixed before you, after you work out, on a continuous basis, you're going to have consistency. You're going to be ripped, you're going to like the way you look. So, yeah.
I love it. Well, PeriSean, we got to wrap this thing up. If people want to find you online, this went by way too fast, as all my podcasts always do. How do they reach out to you? How do they find you? Maybe they're interested in picking up the book or looking into you a little more.
Okay, I am, my website is theculturecode.com. On Instagram as PeriSean. There's probably only one PeriSean on these channels. I've got my own YouTube channel, so I can be PeriSean B. Hall on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, all of those wonderful channels.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This has been a blast.
Yeah, it's been fun. And guys, if you haven't already, make sure you go hit the subscribe button, like, share, leave a comment, and leave us a review wherever you're listening to the podcast. It helps us get the podcast in front of more entrepreneurs so that I can live out my mission, which is to weaponize the next generation of business leaders and their teams. As always, I'm Coach Carroll. It's been another great episode of the Sales Factory. Until next time, hustle. It's worth it.